Welcome to the Business of Race podcast, where we examine issues of race and racism, how they impact businesses, and how employers can address these issues effectively to create a better working environment for everyone. I'm your host, Regina Newkirk-Rucci, Director of Equity for 90 Forward. And today in the conference room, I have got Jacqueline Johnson, who is a community engagement professional and knower of all things extraordinaire. So welcome to the conference room, Jacqueline. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. This is an honor.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to have you here. And so before we get into it, because of course we're going to get into it, I always like to just start off with a little chit chat, a little water cooler conversation. So as we are approaching a new year, right? Think about like just setting goals. I don't know if you do New Year's resolutions or goals, but kind of what are your approach to setting goals? And do you have any that you're thinking about for 2024?
Okay, I have a lot of goals. I'm very much a have a vision, write it down, make it plain, and a manifester. So I have goals and then I put some motion and action behind it. So I'm working on that. I'm not a resolution person because I'd like to think that my goals are moving targets. So they change, with the season. So going into 2024, I think I want to be incredibly intentional, especially with relationship building and all that entails, whether it be professionally or personally. And so that's a real goal of mine that I don't know necessarily was outside of, continue to try not to eat meat or exercising more. Those things are like, oh, okay. But being intentional is something that I really want to hone in on.
Okay. Sure. Well, I think my approach is a little similar because I tend to do themes as opposed to goals or resolutions, I would say. And I do have some particular goals that are tied to that theme. So for 2024, my theme, which is one that I've revisited from a few years ago, is discipline. And so I have to be more disciplined about things, especially non-work things, right? Because I need to be disciplined about the time that, I need to be disciplined about when I stop working. Yep. And I need to be disciplined about having that time to go work out. I need to be disciplined about making time to actually cook meals, right? Or just to build relationships and hang out with friends and meet new people, do fun things. I have this entire list of things that I said I wanted to do this year with my husband. We've done maybe a third of them. And I need to build time in to do those things. So really being very disciplined with my schedule so that I can actually have a little bit more balance and get the things done that I need to done. But I like the intentionality too, because I know I really do need to invest more in relationships. I think, I remember, when I was really young and like in my 20s coming out of college, friendships just came left and right. They were coming everywhere, right? And I could go out somewhere and have a new friend and, the weekend's over, I got 4 new friends. But I don't have the same lifestyle. I don't have that same engagement. So the things that I need to do to really cultivate relationships, and I need to be disciplined about doing that, as well as truthfully just maintaining some of the relationships that I currently have.
Honestly, because that's incredibly hard. And then also the life, anything, think about the life you want to live and think about whom those individuals around you who can support that. And anything that doesn't, I'm trying to just be obedient and just saying no to those things because naturally I'll have time for the other things that I'm trying to be intentional about. So that's a hard concept because not everyone can go with you where you're going.
Right.
So there's a lot of changes on the horizon. And
I do think you have to be open to that, right?
Yeah.
People sometimes are in your life for a reason or a season.
Yep.
And I think, there are some people who we're into the sunset of our relationship. And even though that saddens me, we're just not going to be able to equip each other to be better. And I think that anyone in your life should be equipping you to be better.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron.
Right, it does. And so, and it's not that I wish people ill or, I'm like, oh, I'm done with you. But we don't have the magic and the chemistry we had before.
Yeah, that natural progression.
You have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And just, wish people well, love them. and let them go.
Hold space for them in your heart, but also let them go.
Let them go. Let them go.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. So we're adequately and readily prepared. I don't know. I'm just making up words now.
Okay.
But we're prepared for 2024.
Yes.
So we've got a plan, all the things. Do you have an accountability partner, by the way? Do you do that?
I have several accountability partners. So I don't want to be surrounded by yes men at all. Mm-hmm. And so I've also had to learn how to have difficult conversations, and I can't have them if I don't have people who are holding me accountable. Like, I need a gut check here. And it's not to say that they're always like, well, I don't know if you really should be doing that, but just people who are like, well, you set these goals, you set these intentions. You said you were going to finish the book that I haven't finished yet. So where are you in that? Mm-hmm. Why are you spending time listening to it or watching X, Y, and Z and not spending time writing, creating, right, filling your cup? So I have several. I have a small circle of people who hold me firmly accountable. I'm not a fan all the time, but it's necessary.
You need them.
It's necessary.
You need to have accountability partners that you have a serious relationship with, because there will be times you do not like them.
Yeah. And then professionally as well as in your personal life, right? Mm-hmm. So have a network of accountability partners who you go to, because you don't go to everyone for everything.
Right.
So absolutely.
Okay. And I think I need to be better about engaging my accountability partners on the personal side of my life. I'm really good on the professional.
Okay.
But the personal
Teach me
side.
your ways.
Well, and that again is, in relationships with mentors.
Yes.
And I really believe in very strongly in having mentors. And I have had mentors sort of in circles. So people who are in the organization, people who know the organization but are outside of it, people who know the community, and then people who have no familiarity. Last season we did an episode, and Rebecca, has mentors by skill set. And I was
That's genius.
I'm going to have to think about that. She's like, because I got a networking mentor, I've got a leadership mentor, I've got a public speaking mentor, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh,
I really like that idea.
I like that idea a lot. So I was like, I may have to change up my mentor structure.
Because we approach our work like that, right?
We do.
So we form committees around specific initiatives and things like that. So why wouldn't we do that personally?
Yeah, that makes all the sense. So I'm that may have to be also in my discipline pocket. Okay. Really be looking at how I structure my mentors and going after the specific skills and things that I really want to work on.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. All right. So now we will move into our agenda topic for today.
Okay.
And so you are a community engagement professional. That is your jam. That is what you do. And I know a lot of people would think community engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's not the same, right? But community engagement can really do a lot to help organizations further their DEI goals, as well as be a very constructive way to engage employees in DEI efforts.
Absolutely.
So, because I think for a lot of people, those two don't go together, right? DEI, that's something that sits in HR. Right. So let's talk a little bit about what community engagement is, and then how could DEI fit into that?
Okay.
So let's start out with, again, when you think about community engagement, what is it?
I think about collaborative efforts with a network of either resources or community partners. So these are people who are very close to a community that either needs increased awareness, to be re-engaged, needs a specific level of help or stewardship, and you pull your resources together to problem solve, to mitigate certain factors that are going on outside of their control, like chronic subjugation, changing narratives around why they're there, why they stay there, things of that nature. And you work together not only to problem solve, but you goal set. And then you're constantly measuring that as a measure of impact or whatever your targeted outcomes are. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it is a network of relationships that you have cultivated for specific reasons or gains.
Okay. And so I think that's extremely important. I mean, you just made the business case for it right there, but it's also extremely important as organizations are serving the community, right? You're either bringing a product or a service to the community. You need to know who the community is, have an accurate pulse on what's happening in that community. Just even from a business perspective, like, how do I know that this service makes sense anymore if I don't know what's happening in this community?
Yes.
Right? So community engagement, oftentimes I think a lot of people think about, oh, well, we're going to go out and we're going to help this group here, and we're going to, support this school here or what have you. But this really is, from a business perspective, it is a way to keep a pulse on the communities that you're part of, that you're serving, that you're engaged in, as to what's happening, what's going on, what the priorities are, where there are shifts, so that you can also plan your business more accurately to better serve them.
Yes. So the organization that I work for, we have priorities that obviously drive our field work, but it is also about building a rapport of trust and respect in the communities that you're working in. There's a level of kind of implicit trust that comes in when I go into certain neighborhoods because I look like them and they look like me. Mm-hmm. And so they don't feel like I want something from them. Mm-hmm. And they're more apt to have conversations so I can get a breath of what the needs are, mm-hmm. and then take those back to a corporate setting and let that inform the work that we're doing, our strategic initiatives, our partnerships, what data and metrics are working and what aren't. Mm-hmm. And I think that's incredibly important because then we don't know everything. So we can leverage our insufficiencies with our network of partners that are already doing work and creating more equitable spaces, right? And so together it becomes this beautiful mechanism that drives change and kind of moves the needle. So it's ever evolving, and there's a lot of sweat equity that goes into it.
Oh, yeah.
It is boots on the ground.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, and I think one of the key words that you used is trust. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that corporations really do have to embrace fully. Communities, neighborhoods, people do not automatically trust you because you are in existence.
Because you're bringing something in, and I have all these great services and all these pamphlets and education, but it's like, what does that mean for my neighborhood or my home that I live in?
Right.
So, yeah.
And if you're not asking those questions, if you're not in a position to hear those answers, if you are not seen, you're not likely to gain that trust.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've established what community engagement is, and we've established this from the corporate side, right? Organizationally, I get it. All right. But now, wait a minute. I'm trying to do all this DEI work. What would community engagement have to do with that? Okay. Why would I ever connect the two?
So when we talk about diversity, for one, in a corporate space, we're thinking we want to make sure that, well, let's talk about inclusivity. There has to be a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. So internally and externally, there have to be programs and initiatives put in place so that not only people represent the communities that you serve, but they also have a level of buy-in when it comes to that, right? So it can be something as, I don't want to say minute, but it could be elaborating on why we should provide educational materials in the urban core around sunblock for more melanated people. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, there has to be a level of advocacy for that. Mm-hmm. And so just including, leadership in those types of conversations and forming groups that can kind of let leadership know areas where they would feel a little more sense of belonging or feel like they weren't walking on eggshells or feel like they had to combat microaggressions and things of that nature. So I think including certain language, pronouns, different things in your programming and your platforms, that comes in on the inclusivity side. When it comes to equity, long gone are the days with equality where we're screaming equality and that's enough, right? I was listening to another podcast and they were saying like it's not enough to just watch the ball being kicked down the field and hope that it skirts its way into the goal, and if it doesn't make it, it's like, well, at least everyone got to play. Right? No, that's not enough.
That's not the point.
Where are these consistent practices being put in place that are measurable, that allow for an area, for a certain group or community to thrive, right, to grow, and how are they being monitored? Right. And then how are we changing those as it affects the people who are facilitating those programs and receiving those programs and services?
Well, and this gets back to that issue of like boots on the ground, right? I think about the fact that and this is something really simple, really small, right? We've been putting in little free diverse libraries in various communities throughout the state. So we were talking with some partners in Orange County. We're going to put some in Orange County. Great. All right. Well, we're going to put books in English and Spanish. It's Orange County, right? That is what the data for Orange County tells me. However, when I start having conversations, the fact that we're going to be in north part of Orange County, where there is a very large Brazilian population, and we need to have some books in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that I would have just gotten that off of numbers.
You wouldn't have.
Right? But having those relationships in place, talking to people, being engaged in the community tells me, hey, this is what we need.
Yes.
And so not only that, now when we go, and the library is inclusive of Portuguese books and Spanish. Wait a minute. You see me.
I feel seen.
I feel seen.
I feel represented.
And I'm valued.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
There are adult books in Portuguese. There are children's books in Portuguese.
And that's the engagement part.
And that's the engagement.
And that is actually what drives those outcomes. Mm-hmm. So, and then just speaking on diversity as well, like just having conversations in and out. So, for example, there were 2 churches, right? And one church had a food bank. And the food bank, you wouldn't know this unless you actually went to the church and engaged with them and sat and were a vendor while they were distributing the goods. But one church was always running out of food. Mm-hmm. So we were trying to figure out, why are you always running out of food? And the church a few blocks down has a surplus. How can we, how can we mitigate this? And so the 2 churches weren't speaking to each other because they were of 2 different religious denominations. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to facilitate an introduction, have a conversation, and figure out a way to get them to work together. Mm-hmm. What we learned through conversation was that the church that was always running out of food had a direct access to public transportation.
Little things.
Yes, and the church that had a surplus did not. Mm-hmm. So through leveraging our tenure, our access to gatekeepers and policymakers, we were able to get a bus stop put in front of the other church. And because we facilitated a conversation, we realized that we both are part of the same goal. We're community facing. Mm-hmm. They began to communicate to each other, and the goods started transferring back and forth, and we eliminated a barrier, access. Mm-hmm. So we're combating food insecurity and all of these different things from just a conversation. And this is just being there and talking and listening to the community and their needs.
Right. And that matters to communities, right? Mm-hmm. I know that I am very intentional in a tremendous number of the shopping decisions that I make, the service decisions that I make, based on what organizations do in the community, right? Do they serve my community, right? Do I think that they're doing and value things that I value? And so people are looking at you and making decisions based on that.
Yes.
So there's also the business case, that side, right? I want to see that you're doing great things in the community, that you're helping to bring this community together, that you're making it stronger. And when you make the community stronger, they're in a much better position to support your goods and services.
Yes.
Right? So that part all makes sense. It's great. But I also think there's the other side, and that's the employee side.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because especially now, when we've had the great resignation, where we had so many people leave their jobs because they didn't feel fulfilled, they weren't getting sort of that emotional satisfaction from the work that they did. And I think people had a greater realization of its importance after COVID. Now those kinds of things are things that employees are looking for, and they're asking about what you're doing in the community, how you're making a difference, how do I get to make the world a better place. I also think that's a very big part for millennials and Gen Zers. Yeah.
They're not staying. They're not happy. They're not staying.
And they're not staying. And so it is not, I think about like my uncle.
I guess I'm in there.
When I think about my Uncle Marilyn, who worked at the same job for 56 years, and I'm like, okay, it just doesn't happen anymore. And it costs money to train a new person and recruit a new person and get somebody in. So the things that you can do to make really good employees happy and stay, the better for your profit margin as well, right? So what kinds of things are employees looking about? What are kinds of things are you seeing that matter to employees that they're saying, hey, we want to have an opportunity to do this?
Employees are really paying attention to impact reports that different corporations and businesses are putting out. So if I look on an impact report and I see that there's less than 10% of women of color in senior positions, I ask myself, I want to know why. And I want to know what programs or professional development opportunities are in place to either build them up or, you know, get them in a position where they could apply or be qualified on paper for those types of positions. I have a lot of questions in and around why is that? Mm-hmm. The other thing that employees are asking are, what kind of network resource groups do you have? Where can I go outside of the classroom or not classroom? Where can I go outside? I work from home and I used to be a teacher and sometimes I get PTSD.
Right.
So where can I go outside of, you know, my desk and my office space and have conversations and feel comfortable in my own skin? Mm-hmm. And then be okay and know that some of that feedback is going to go and be taken and developed into programs. So, for example, the network resource groups take the issues that are coming about up to leadership, and leadership decides that they need to put programs in place that amplify different perspectives or amplify people in the BIPOC community's specific achievements or their children, junior achievers. So those are questions that employees want to know outside of, you know, the 401ks and all of those things, that matters. But what also matters is, will I feel like I can thrive here, I can grow, I'll be represented, and I will add value. Mm-hmm. And so I even was speaking with leadership the other day and I was like, wow, is this what it's like when someone takes a chance on you? And when I said it, I was like, it was almost as if I didn't think I deserved to be there because my background was in law and education and it didn't exactly lend itself to the position I have now. And my leader was like, I need you to never say that again because we saw value in you from your unique experience. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself was enough for us to be like, you're the person that needs to be community facing.
Okay, so there's so much there, and I want to make sure. I said so much, sorry. Well, no, I love it because I want to pull the layers apart, yes. Right? So number one, I think there is the issue of being seen, right? Being seen and being valued. And so when you talk about community engagement, when there are opportunities for me to do things that align with my values, yes. That shows me that you see me, you value me, and that we have similar values, yes. Right? There are some organizations I am not going to work for because I don't have a shared value system with them, period. Yeah. Right? And so more people are realizing that. And, you know, I remember the 40-hour work weeks. I don't know where they went, but I'm like, I'm working all the time. Yeah. For an organization to take such a significant percentage of my time, it has to be something that I'm going to jive with, yes. Right? And I need to feel like you feel me, I feel you, yes. Right? And that's important to people. That has to happen. Then the other thing that you said, and I thought this is really interesting, is sort of this community aspect of it, right? Because I don't think I've been a part of any community engagement activities where I was the only one who went. I don't remember that happening, right? So you're generally going with some other yes. people, and they may not be people like from your department or the people who are in your office. And especially as we have more people who are working remotely, just the fact that you're with people for something anyway, right? Those opportunities. But that communal aspect, I think, is also really important in yes. this community engagement work.
Absolutely. And, you know, I want to go back to what you said about, I'm not going to work with you if we don't have shared values, because I was in education for so long, teaching in a low socioeconomic area, and I could not justify leaving my babies. I couldn't justify leaving them if I didn't know that I can make an impact on a much broader scale. So when I was considering working in community engagement, I was like, okay, well, I can impact these 100 babies that I have here now, or I can impact all of them across Northeast Florida. Mm-hmm. And so when I knew that leadership was like, that's one of the reasons why we think you're a fit, because you have a invested interest already in the community,
right,
and already in legacy building. So it was a no-brainer for me.
Right. And more people are coming to interviews with that kind of mindset. Mm-hmm. Right. I know that was very important for me too. Leaving education. It's like, okay, I need to be able to still work in a space that's going to impact these classrooms, these kids, these services. Right. So now I work in racial equity and justice.
There you go.
Right. Same thing.
Yep.
I can do this on a broader scale, but that mattered to me. And that was actually a big part of my consideration process in looking at this job. So people are making different considerations when they're looking for jobs. And I know as we're now in this place where we need to find more people, you really need to be looking at the things that are going to matter to the folks that you're interviewing.
I agree.
Right. Now, I also think that there's this piece with the resource groups.
Yes.
And we wind up talking about employee resource groups a lot. I think they are tremendous value. But this is a little bit of a nuanced aspect to them, because I think that they can provide a place of safety.
Yes.
Right. I can talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the organization that applies to whatever identity this group is in.
Correct.
Right. They give you a place to formulate ideas.
Yes.
Well, we should do this. It'd be really great if we had this. And they can do a lot for the organization. They can provide sort of that community.
Yeah.
Right. I'm with my peeps.
Yes.
Right. But it's interesting how a employee resource group could also be one of the main connections to community engagement.
1,000%.
And I've never really even thought about it that way. If you're allowing a lot of your employee resource groups to drive your community engagement, what are some things that could come from putting those two aspects of work together?
Absolutely. I can speak to that. So for one, with the resource groups, corporate volunteerism. So the idea of putting, and it could be those employees who don't normally, like a lot of us work from home, so we don't get that level of, I'm in the field, so I get a lot of engagement, but others do not. So just being able to get out into the community, also changing the narrative around, there are certain corporations that people still don't understand quite what they're doing out there in the community. So changing the narrative around what they're doing, why they're there, how their mission is based on problem solving. So it gets that unique awareness. There's that unique awareness aspect. But also with the volunteerism, we have opportunities to maybe engage with other communities as well. So whether through parades, we find hidden talent in there as well, right? There are authors and different types of creatives that are out doing great work in the community that you otherwise maybe would not know. And those things are being published and they're being amplified as well. I think they can facilitate, they can turn the leadership's lens to certain initiatives that maybe they might not have been looking towards, like junior, like what the YMCA has, like the Black Achievers, or like historically Black colleges have certain programs where you can get deeply involved in STEAM. And so I think those groups are an asset when it comes to educating, supporting, reallocating resources outside of what the company's mission is. Because I mean, honestly, they're parallel anyway. So did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's a really important avenue that can be explored, because that can allow you to surface some of those connections within the employee resource group that they can then act upon.
Yes.
And make those connections for the organization. Yes.
Right.
And,
absolutely.
And people then also have a voice, right? Again, if you value me and you see me, you also hear me.
Yes. And if you're talking about marginalized and disadvantaged populations, you can also think about it in this way. Those groups also have more of an opportunity to go out into the community, and then just from like one unique engagement, maybe like one specific cause or event that we go out to, or one maybe seasonal partnership, that creates a springboard for for these more grassroots efforts that, you know, otherwise maybe the spotlight wasn't quite on them. And now I'm looking like months down the line, and they're working with major brands, and they have increased visibility towards their programs and services. And so there's a great opportunity also to kind of reach your hand down and pull another organization or someone else up. Low
Absolutely.
reach, high impact.
Yes. And that is a tremendous outcome.
Yeah.
Right, for this. And something else, and this could be the last one for me, I promise, is the equity piece.
Yes.
And this is going back to the community, right? I think about the fact that I was in a listening session in a community, and this organization was announcing that they were going to do this program. And they had come for the announcement, and I think we're really expecting people to be very excited.
Yeah.
And then people consistently told them, this isn't the program we need. We need this program.
Yes.
No, we need this program. We need this program. And they were like, well, we're still doing the program we're doing, and you'll love it. Great. If you are wanting to be equitable in your services, and you're wanting to meet the community's needs, if you are engaged with the community, you can actually find out when you start planning what you're going to do that you go to program B instead of program A. Because program A made sense.
Yes.
Right? When I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But that's not what the community wanted.
No.
That's not what they needed. They were like, that's not what we need. And so we've been in some other sessions, and, you know, again, having the community voice dictating what's needed and what happens, and when they're a part of it, again, building that investment, building that trust, and you're actually meeting the need of the community, so people will engage with your service or goods or what have you. So when you think about community engagement from an equity standpoint, it's really a great way to ensure that you are really being equitable in addressing those needs, because you're hearing from the people and responding to what they say.
Yes. And ultimately, we want to be able to level the playing field as well. So one of the first things I ask when I meet with a community partner is, how can we support you? What do you need? Is there a program that you'd like to breathe life back into? Where are you seeing the gaps in services? Like, what demographic are primarily using your programs and services? Or is there something that you need? Do you have intervention services, but you don't have wraparound services?
Right.
So you have to you have to really just sit and listen. And then I think it's important to have this conversation too, because a lot of organizations aren't aware that they can ask for what they need. Because it doesn't look, maybe fits into a certain category of priorities, or it doesn't look how maybe marketable or packaged in a way that would be well received by a more tenured corporation. Right. Ask for what you need. And someone who is really community facing and is an advocate will support you in that. Right. They will show you, I've done everything. I've created surveys. I've showed you how to collect data. I've facilitated introductions with organizations that, hey, you don't have the funds for this, but this organization does. And you have something that they need. Let's facilitate an introduction.
And that, I think, is also really really important too. Organizations, community members asking for what you need. But as the corporation coming in, doing this community engagement work, you have to be willing to serve in a number of roles. Because yes, I want to be a listener, right? I want to hear what you're saying. I want to be a resource provider. I've got this service or good. I want to make sure that I'm getting it to people in this community. But you can also be a connector. And sometimes corporations are like, why am I giving business to somebody else? Well, we don't do that. This is what the community needs. But if you can help facilitate those things coming together, again, building a stronger community, which is only going to create more people who are in a position to take advantage of the goods or services you provide. Right? So that long game of understanding that if you come in and you can connect people if you can do something that isn't really in your wheelhouse or isn't going to lead to a profit right now, the relationship building that it takes, and again, leveling the playing field, being equitable, that is also long-term going to benefit your organization. Yeah,
or just the impact, the long-standing impact, right? Because everyone talks about ROI and sustainability.
Right.
But like, what do we do to get to that point? And how
it doesn't come overnight.
Yeah, it doesn't come overnight. And so just being aware of that, and a lot of education around how for-profit companies really are changing how they package their help. I don't know a better way to say that. Really, honestly, or they're or being strategic in who or maybe strategic is not even the word.
Well, I think it is strategic, though, because it's strategic on multiple fronts.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, you're going to be left behind, because you've got organizations who are doing it. They're like, okay, so we're going to be building trust in the community. We're going to be engaging our employees. We're going to be listening and letting our employees drive this so that their voice is heard. And that's helping to shape our organizational values and what we believe, which then goes into our impact. It puts us in different communities, different spaces. And it's taking us to places that we hadn't even thought about before, but from the community members or the employees driving a lot of that work. Oh, hey, this is really fertile ground that we haven't really explored.
Absolutely.
So a lot of organizations are being extremely strategic in that. And for something that often is a feel good, for something that often is, you're giving away pens or bottles of water, all those things. But what comes from it is huge.
Yeah.
And again, that's that long term. This is definitely a long game.
Absolutely. Approach. And I love that you said about the pens, because a lot of people, we were having a conversation with leadership, because they say the assumption is that you guys are just out there shaking hands and kissing babies. And we know that you're not. And so me being here today, I've been empowered by leadership to have this conversation, to sit down and do this, because subject matter, what do you care? I've literally been asked, what do you care about? And then I've been told, oh, we know you care about this. Go sit down and have this conversation. Go seek those people out. Because, they fall under the priorities that we're looking toward, that we're going to be working in anyway, that drive our mission. So if this is what you care about and you're going to do it with fidelity because you care about it and you feel seen while doing it, go do that. So I feel incredibly blessed.
Right. And you feel that way? Oh, more likely to stay.
Yeah.
And do great work for the organization.
Yeah, I planted roots.
And rise through the ranks. But that's the point, right?
Yeah.
So it is, yes, there's definitely a warm and fuzzy aspect to community engagement.
Absolutely.
But there is so much information that can come from it, relationships that can be established, and the groundwork laid for future growth that you just can't even imagine if it's done well and done right.
Yep. And just be intentional about, I know data isn't the warm and fuzzy part of it, but be intentional about the data that you are collecting. Because when someone comes to you and asks you to almost assuredly ask you to justify what you're doing and why, you can say, well, here are the metrics.
Right. Right.
The data doesn't lie.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, data should be a part of every single conversation you have.
The data doesn't lie.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
So absolutely.
It doesn't. All right. So as we wrap things up, I think it's always good to just think about what is that one big takeaway. So if you think, wow, we did talk about a lot of stuff. What is the one thing I would encourage people to really focus on, really hone in as they think about community engagement and intertwining that with DEI? What would you say is the one thing that they really need to focus on?
I would say, I would leave you with this, that all people, no matter what, are the best investment you can make, truly. The ROI, the best return on investment that you can get is when you effectively invest in people, and there are positive outcomes that come from especially from a historically marginalized population. So people are the best investment. And if you do that with good intention and fidelity, the future is quite bright.
And I couldn't agree with that more. I think I would take from this, though, that you can engage your employees.
Yes.
To help you identify those communities and places you need to be in.
Investing in.
There
you go.
Right? Because that's investing in people inside your organization and outside of your organization.
Absolutely.
You know, and why would you not do a 2-for-1?
Absolutely.
Like, and those are the two groups of people you need to invest in.
We all get excited when you see the logo.
Right?
I make an impact. And
I'm doing this? What?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. My retention is great. It's off the charts.
Right.
And people are trusting us, engaging more with us.
Right.
Why wouldn't you do that? So really being strategic.
Yes.
And allowing your community engagement to run from the inside of your organization to the outside. And
it's okay for your organizational initiatives to align with the community's initiatives. Like that is okay. So the work is, there's lots of work to do, but I'm excited to be the one to get to do it. So, yeah. Well, I know you will do a phenomenal job. Oh my goodness. Extremely excited that you are out in the community doing this work. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you to you. Allowing people to have this platform is incredibly impactful. So thank you. Well, I'm really grateful that people are willing to come in here and talk about these issues and share with others. So this is extremely beneficial. Yes. We really appreciate it. Yes, you are a resource. You are valuable. Thank you. Thank you. I feel seen and heard. Let me affirm you. I feel seen and heard. Thank you so much. Great. Oh, Jacqueline, it has been great. It has. Thank you for having me. All right. And thank you for joining us today in the conference room. Please click that subscribe button as well as like. We like to be liked, but this helps us get more of our content out to more people and lets us know the types of issues that you want to hear about. If you have questions or issues you'd like to get a little input from, please send those to info@904word.org. And we look forward to seeing you next week in the conference room. Take care.